Okay, we will go ahead and get started. I'm first going to go through some logistics, and then we'll have some general intros of the council members who are on and staff, and then if anybody wants to jump in. And then we'll go through the regular updates with a lot of other updates that are related that we're excited about, and hope to get some feedback and amplify. So greetings everyone, and welcome to the May 2022 listening sessions for the California Truth and Healing Council. We have general listening sessions this week, with the first taking place today, Monday, May 16th from 1 to 2:30, and tomorrow, Tuesday, May 17th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. The council will hold a regular meeting the council will hold its next regular meeting in the summer, and we have a date TBD since we're trying to coordinate schedules and make sure that we have the most people available as possible. My name is Christina Snyder, and I'm a member of the Dry Creek Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians and the Tribal Advisor for Governor Gavin Newsom. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the ancestral homelands of the Patwin peoples today. I'm now going to briefly walk through some of the logistics for today's session. First, we are recording this session, and it's available for public participation via Zoom and dial-in. The recording and summary notes will be available on the CTHC meeting page and the blog as soon as they're ready. For those interested in following the council, ongoing updates, including listening session recordings and the listening session summary documents, are available at the California Truth and Healing Council updates blog at catruthandhealing.com. You can also get updates for events by following the Governor's Office of the Tribal Advisor on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Additional details, including meeting dates, agendas, and background information, are available at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. If you haven't already done so, we'd appreciate if you could update your name to let us know who you are. And you can also put in the chat any intro information that you have as well, including your tribe, where you're joining us from, and any other details you'd like to put in the chat. And then as we get into the discussion portion of today's session, we'd appreciate if those who are comfortable could go on camera so that we can have a bit more face-to-face interaction. We're going to start with brief introductions of those of you who have joined us, and then as always, we'll dive into a quick overview to get everyone up to speed on recent updates, and then we'll go into the listening and discussion portion of today's convening. If you'd like to speak at any point, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. If you're using the Zoom app, you should be able to raise your hand using the app controls, but you can also use Alt-Y in Windows or Option-Y on Mac to raise or lower your hand. If you've dialed in, you should be able to raise your hand by pressing *9. You can also email written comments to info@catruthandhealing.com at your convenience. Now, before we begin, I'd like to remind participants that all of our council members, council staff, and many of you are members of the population seeking collective healing. So I ask that you engage with the council, our office, and each other with respect and with your whole heart and a healing mindset. Many of us doing this work are navigating systems that were not built for us to make change that was never contemplated. This in itself takes an enormous amount of patience and emotional integrity, and we're all doing our best in these to make strides in these spaces. So thank you again for joining us. I would like to hand it over to Councilmember Lucas and Councilmember Harper if you'd like to introduce yourselves and say a few words at this time.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Carmen Lucas. I'm from Quaimee, Laguna Mountain Reservation, private property now, but happy to be here, very humbled over this process. I would encourage those folks that are listening to raise any issues that you want, and to remember the goal is to try and correct the historic record for the California Indians, and hopefully bring much more light to our history and get something good from that instead of constantly complaining. We need to get out of the anger and hate, and we need to celebrate life and represent our ancestors in an intelligent manner and make sure that we pay them the honest respect that they're due. So I would encourage everybody to participate in this. If you got old folks at home who haven't documented their history, regardless of good, bad, or ugly, please encourage them to do that. I think that's an ingredient that will really be beneficial to the correction of the historic record of California Indians. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Harper.
Yes, Open Nikantoish. Greetings, everyone. Meawe Joan Harper, and I'm Southern Pomo and Coast Miwok. I'm joining you today from Rohnert Park, California, in Northern California. And I'm looking forward to listening and hearing what you have to share with us. And thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Councilmember. And then we also have Michael Park from my office on. So if there's anything that you'd like to chat with him about, or to get on our calendar to meet, or if you'd like to request a collaboration, which we'll talk about later, in where we would have an in-person listening session in your location aligned with something else that you have happening at the same time, or if you'd like to collaborate on a meeting of the Truth and Healing Council. I think where we're going to have most impact is where the community is already convening and excited about doing this kind of work. And so we'd love to work with all of you to plan out those kinds of events. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're thinking about for this summer, because it might spark some ideas. And then also, before we get started, there's some links in the chat on some of the things I just talked about. And then there's also, as we think through all of this work, and as folks are engaging and sharing their thoughts today, I'd really like to think about collectively, what does healing look like in this process, and what are we aiming toward? I think on an individual level, but also on a community level, both the tribal community, your personal tribal community, and then broader Indian country in California, and then broader tribal, non-tribal, native, non-native community. What is healing, and what should be the goal of this process from your perspective? So I'm going to open it up for folks who want to introduce themselves. So if you'd like to do so, you can either put something in the chat, or you can also jump in and unmute your line and introduce yourself. Or if you brought any thoughts with you, you can go ahead and do that as well. So I'll mute myself and we'll give it a couple minutes.
Okay, I guess that's my turn. Hi, my name is Robert Levi. I'm a citizen of the Torres Martinez Desert Koyi Indians down here in Southern California. I guess I'm on the subcommittee of education for the council. Just a real quick blurb, AB 1703, the California Indian History emphasis and our curriculum for the state of California is coming up Thursday in the Appropriations Committee. If you would please call your representatives and let them know that they need to support this important bill for us California Indians. And then also we're in the heart of graduation season. So everybody's excited at San Bernardino, and I'm guessing pretty much all the other colleges and universities in California for our Indian students. And again, for me, I hope they become teachers, because again, we are the healers that must continue the voice of our ancestors in the state of California for both Indian and non-Indian students and people in general. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And I happened to be on the same flight as Assemblymember Ramos this morning, and we decided we're going to have a Truth and Healing meeting at San Bernardino. So better get all of your hybrid stuff ready. Great.
Most definitely. Okay, cool. All right, thank you.
Great. Would any other folks like to introduce themselves at this time?
I'll introduce myself. Hi, Christina. This is Buffy Schmidt, Vice Chairperson for Sherwood Valley Band of Pomo Indians, also descendant from Noyo Rancheria from Fort Bragg and Yoqueo Rancheria here in Ukiah, Mendocino County. Good to be here.
Good to see you. Welcome.
Hello,
Anthony?
I can introduce myself. Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Talalieres. I am I identify as Comanche and Navajo on my mother's side, and I am a Pueblo on my father's side. I've done a lot of work up here in the Sacramento Bay Area region, and I currently work for the Sacramento Region Community Foundation to listen in and see how maybe philanthropy can play a part in helping raise this fund. I think part of healing is trying to grow it as big as possible so that we have as many resources to distribute as possible as well. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you for joining us. Executive Secretary Hitchcock, did you want to introduce yourself?
Can you hear me without feedback? I've got it on my phone. Good afternoon, Christina. Good afternoon, everybody. Machixis. I'm Raymond Chucky Hitchcock. I'm a Miwok Anishinaabe descent, and I'm a member of Wilton Rancheria here in Sacramento, California. I was recently appointed, thank you very much, to Tribal Advisor Snyder. I'm the Executive Secretary, or the newly appointed Secretary of the Native American Heritage Commission. So I wanted to sit in and listen to the movement of how the truth and healing is coming along, and I'm glad I can be a part of the family and continue to do good work and bridge the tribes with the state of California. So thank you.
Very good, and welcome. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves to the group at this time?
Hi, Christina. I'm not going on camera because I'm sick and I look sick, so I apologize. But I just wanted to let you guys know that we had 9 disenrolled tribal members meet with our council and re-enroll this last Saturday, and we are just ecstatic. Thank you.
Congratulations. And I think if there's anything you'd like to share about that process, I think we're trying to think through the programming for some of the subcommittees, and I think it would be helpful to hear what that process was, similar to what happened with Robinson, because I know with some tribes it's a bit more challenging because you've got to submit constitutional amendments that take a giant quorum, and then with other tribes it may be less challenging. So I think that would be helpful for people who are thinking of bringing some of their folks back. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves at this time?
Hey, Christina, I'm Teresa Sanchez, Tribal Councilwoman for the Morongo Band of Mission Indians, and I'm listening in today to see what this is all about. I hear good things, so I want to start listening, see if we can help in some way.
Great. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I see another council member on, but I'm not going to put them on the spot just in case they're multitasking. But we'll have another pause in the meeting for folks that want to introduce themselves a little bit later. And I'm going to go ahead and do our updates since there's quite a bit to get through. And I think folks want to hear a bit more also about the fund that was just announced, and then some of the budget items that were proposed by the governor. We're going to go over all of that today as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If folks want to continue introducing themselves, you're welcome to do so in the chat and provide any resources in the chat. And if you have any questions as we go along, you can either put them in the chat and we'll get to them. Michael will be monitoring it and read them in, or we will, you can always raise your hand and ask a question while we're presenting. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Okay, and Michael, okay, good. Okay. So we'll start with the council meeting principles, which the council has adopted to make sure that we are creating a space that is conducive to productive dialogue, but also while not creating opportunities for lateral trauma or lateral violence. And we want to make sure that everyone's coming here in a respectful way where we can talk about ideas, have a healthy place for argument, but also not engage in personal attacks or put individuals in an uncomfortable position. So in order to create a space where participants feel welcome, respected, and able to speak comfortably, we'll uphold the following principles in all convenings of the council. We ask that all participants, including council members, authorized representatives, staff, moderators, and the public, work toward sharing in their stewardship. If you're a participant in a convening with the council, we ask that you engage in the work of the council and with others in an open and respectful way. Engage in behaviors that will make others feel welcome. Take care of your emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical well-being, and seek support as you need it. What does respectful engagement mean? It means to affirm the person and critique the ideas. Provide feedback constructively and with the intent for mutual growth and healing. Welcome feedback and challenges to your opinions. Part of this process is an understanding that everybody comes from different backgrounds and has access to different kinds of experiences, information, resources. And so we want to make sure that we're engaging in opportunities for growth rather than attacks based on assumptions or based on just general ignorance. Avoid contributing to assumptions or generalizations about tribes, tribal communities, or other groups. Do not ask individuals to speak for their perceived group. Speak only for yourself. Offer participants the benefit of the doubt. Spirited discussions are expected on these topics. See this as a sign that folks are engaged and care, and remember to be respectful as you speak, read, and listen. Also, I think the flip side of this too is that there are many folks here that are engaging in this work that are doing so after decades and decades of doing the same work. And so I think from the other perspective, it helps to be understanding that people are understandably frustrated with the lack of progress over the past several decades and may have that kind of context in this space as well. Honor confidentiality. Do not share others' experiences or information without permission. And this is really honoring and respecting the fact that people and their own personal experiences, their own family experiences are theirs alone. And it's integral to their identity, which has been, for lots of Native people, systemically stripped and taken from them. And so we don't want this process to be extractive in that same way. So if people come to this space sharing personal stories, personal thoughts, personal opinions, please, please, please continue to honor that ownership unless they have consented to sharing their experience in a different form and format than within the context of these meetings. Assume that you have relative privileges and both explicit and implicit biases. Note that others may or may not have had similar opportunities, experiences, and background as you, and recognize that their contributions are equally valuable. For those from dominant identity groups, refrain from contributions that prioritize dominant experiences over those who have been marginalized. Make behavioral adjustments for virtual communication. If you wouldn't say something to someone's face, refrain from saying it virtually by voice or text. Know that the use of strong language, capital letters, and exclamation marks can be easily misinterpreted online as unwelcome yelling or aggressive behavior. Remember that tone does not carry via text, and people might not realize that you're joking or being sarcastic. Also, leave space for others to engage and express comments and ideas if you've spoken recently by letting people finish their thoughts before adding new ones. In the context of this work too, if there are tribal leaders and elected officials in these spaces, and if there are elders in these spaces, we ask that you make sure that there's space for them to engage prior to engaging in comments and suggestions. Personal well-being. Take steps to ensure your physical comfort. So that could be shifting your sitting and standing position often, taking deep breaths, raising your eyes to look beyond the screen, keeping a glass of water nearby, and taking sips throughout sessions. In the hybrid context, I think it's also make sure you're not taking on too much so that you're not going back and forth between in-person and meetings and feeling like you're going to burn out because you want to engage in this work fully. And if you need more space to be able to engage fully, please let us know so that we can figure out how to accommodate it. Participate as you are able to and adjust your presence as needed, whether that's turning off video or stepping away entirely. It's not expected that all participants will or should be present for the entirety of the council's work. And we know and support that you'll take time to eat, take care of your families and pets, but be aware that virtual convenings will be recorded and available to the public. Set up supportive resources such as food, water, ergonomics, and privacy while offloading responsibilities if possible in advance of convenings. Seek support from your own networks and provided resources as needed, and please alert council staff to any concerns as soon as possible. We recognize that participants bring their entire selves and histories with them to the council, and that topics explored during the course of this work may stimulate emotions and thoughts that would benefit from accompaniment and support. Although trauma responses can come from a variety of sources and contexts, the council understands that those who have experienced disparate treatment due to their Native identities may specifically want to seek assistance related to historical trauma and related issues discussed with the council. Council staff will be providing supportive resources for participants to be available for the duration of the council's work. And some of those contracts, which are with several Native and Western practitioners, are in the process of being finalized and should be ready in the next month or two. So they'll start being a more active presence in the context of both the hybrid meetings, but then at our listening sessions as well. So today we're going to go through a lot of things. I don't think they'll take too long, but I want to make sure everyone who's here kind of understands where we are and where we're going and where are some of the things that have been in development alongside and informed by this process. And as we discuss some of those opportunities, if there's anything that is something that it looks like this is a good start, and then, you know, this is something that we want to model in different places or in different institutions, or if there are things that look like they're good fixes that could be incorporated into the recommendations piece of this work, you know, we'd love to hear from you as this all gets rolled out. So we'll go through the overview of the council. We'll go through the hybrid quarterly council meetings, the California Truth and Healing Fund that was just launched, the UC Opportunity Plan, and the Grayton Scholarship Fund, just so that there's more public awareness around this, which it's a UC Office of the President initiative in partnership with several tribes. We'll talk a bit about some of the proposals in the May revision of the governor's budget, and we'll talk about that process as well, because it's not final until it goes through a whole legislative process. So we want to make sure people understand that. And then we'll talk a bit about the subcommittees and issue area task forces and how some of the work is already starting to get deployed, and then how we want to hear a bit more about how folks are thinking about other spots. And then, as always, if you have comments and questions along the way, we can also talk about that as well. So the California Truth and Healing Council is a California Native American-led initiative that aims to clarify the historical record of the relationship between the state and California Native Americans by bearing witness to, recording, examining existing documentation of, and receiving California Native narratives in the spirit of truth and healing. It's led and convened by my office and governed by a governing council of California Native American leaders, and can also include additional non-voting representatives from the California Native American tribes, relevant state and local agencies, and other relevant non-governmental stakeholders. The council will submit a final written report of findings to the governor's office by 2025, and that should reflect a holistic understanding of the historical relationship between California Native Americans and the state, and can also make remedial recommendations and consider how to prevent similar depredations or policies in the future. So in practice, this will likely be split into work streams that are under issue area specialists. And so we're talking to one group right now to deploy on a kind of criminal justice and wellness piece to help staff that. But that's what we're kind of looking at, is that sub-reports may actually be ready prior to 2025, depending on how they're staffed and how they're deployed. But we can talk about that a little bit as we move through this. The recommendations will be considered and adopted or developed by the council in real time. They can be recommendations to improve policy, legislation, or funding for California Native people. And the proposed approach is that the task forces will propose recommendations to the deliverables subcommittee for its review and approval as their sub reports are being drafted. And then the deliverables subcommittee, to the extent that there's anything they want to finalize, they'll bring that to the full council. The council welcomes and encourages all available methods for public participation. So participants are encouraged to attend and observe all meetings of the council, submit written statements to the council, make oral statements and testimony to the council, participate in interactive dialogues, panel discussions, and informal meetings, organize and host affiliate events on issues relevant to the work of the council, and join the work of the subcommittees. I think in addition to affiliate events, if there is something that you're planning and you'd like the council to be there as part of a quarterly meeting, or to have a listening session, or to just be there so that we can get some of those testimonies from the people that you serve within your organization, or similar type of structure, we are happy to accommodate that as well. If you're a California Native American tribe, so those are those on the contact list for the NHC, but also we understand that there are some tribes that haven't asked to be considered to be on that list. If you are you consider yourself self-identify as a California Native American tribe, we're conducting ongoing consultation meetings. And so what we've done to this point is it's more kind of getting to know each other, getting detailed questions outside of the context of these listening sessions asked and answered, and kind of getting an idea of how each of the tribes that we're meeting with wants to engage. Some tribes want to host the council to yesterday and want to be able to tell the story that very much characterizes their area. Some tribes are kind of developing their own type of recommendations and report, and or are already there and are just kind of waiting for the right moment to be able to engage. So we're flexible about all of it. And we're also flexible if tribes don't feel like this is the process for them, or they don't want to partner with the state, or they want to wait and see. I think we're flexible about all of it, and just want to make sure that tribes know that if they want to engage, they can. And if they need more to be able to engage, we'd really like to hear a bit more about that, so we can help craft some budgets and funding resources for tribes that are not quite able to engage. And one of those things is even, are the days of the in-person meetings the right days? Should we be having one weekend day to encourage folks that have day jobs to be able to attend, and kids that would otherwise be in school? Should we be having that all be weekends? I think we'd love to hear feedback on that as well. Outside, so we're flexible at the method and mode of meetings. Meetings can be recorded. At the beginning of these meetings, we'll basically say, hey, would you like this recorded? If not, it'll just be kind of an informal conversation. If tribes want to record the meeting because they want it to be a part of the record for the submission, they can do that as well. So we're, again, flexible and appreciate the communication and the direction. Outside of tribal consultation, the Governing Council and the Tribal Advisor's Office are available to meet with Native American individuals, organizations, and groups at their request. For folks that have been thinking about doing this but are worried that what we talk about will go somewhere else, the consultations are very much between your tribe and the governor's office of the tribal advisor. So outside of the context of that, it's not shared freely with members of the council, for example, with the public, for example. So there's, we do that so that if there are kind of intertribal issues, interpersonal issues, we can have those conversations in a way that's a bit more comfortable, and account for things that people might not want to share in the context of kind of a group meeting. So we just want to make sure everybody's feeling okay about engaging, and if there's a way to make it easier to engage, please let us know. Outside of tribal consultation, the Governing Council and the Tribal Advisor's Office are available to meet with Native American individuals, organizations, and groups at their request. And I think I already said that. the information in the context of these consultations is aggregated so that it's all fed into the process. But again, you know, we're talking about close to 200 different tribes, and then, you know, a very large population of Native American individuals outside of tribal consultation. So if you're not seeing your specific recommendation kind of make its way up to the top, it may not be that it's not, it may be that we're trying to prioritize the things that we're hearing more generally across the board. So again, we're currently seeking to conduct interviews for Native oral histories, particularly from elders, and can provide you with assistance in providing submissions. We are hopefully very soon going to be getting quite a few iPad Pros, because we're actually doing this. We're creating a bit of a lending library, and we're going to have to think about how we want to deploy that. But basically we'll have enough so that regionally there will be technology for people to even potentially go meet with partners and do the oral histories on their own with using that technology, and then submit it to us, so that we have kind of standard across the board capture of those oral histories. But what we can do is partner with some of the CSUs, for example, to have them kind of like hold, you know, that lending library, have people be able to access those, that technology, and then also have some on-site support to the extent that you need it. And then we're also going to be providing oral history recording opportunities aligned with regional listening sessions and anything that we have that's in person. And so what that'll look like is basically like signups for dates and times, and then, you know, kind of an idea of whether you want someone facilitating those oral histories, or whether you or you know, someone from your tribe will be facilitating that as well. So the council is currently utilizing a hybrid model to conduct its regular regional meetings and hearings, given that we are still under a pandemic. And so we want to make sure that people are able to engage as much as they can, but understanding that this kind of work is much better if you can be in person, but we don't want to unnecessarily put people at risk. The first hybrid regional meeting of the council took place in March in Sacramento, and we'll go over what that looked like. And then the governing council will meet as needed to conduct business. So that's pretty much highlight action items. You know, as things start rolling out and as decisions need to be made, they'll need to meet to be able to vote on that. And those will be done in accordance with open meeting rules and may occur in conjunction with quarterly meetings or regional meetings or listening sessions as well. So for the March hybrid meeting, this is kind of a basic overview of how it looked. I don't think every meeting needs to look the same. This is just kind of what we put together based on the existing resources, and also trying to accommodate kind of an uncertain pandemic landscape. I think there are a lot more venues that are equipped to do hybrid types of meetings at this point, and even we will have the ability to do kind of on-site streaming with our own technology. So I think we'll have a bit more flexibility about how we think about these meetings. But the day before is kind of more optional side events. So there's opportunities to meet with tribes, opportunities to go to cultural centers, opportunity to go see where good work has been done, go see places where there's still a lot needed to be done, so that the council can kind of be thinking a lot more critically about what are some of the things that need to get done for the community to feel like meaningful efforts are being made. For the Thursday, we had, the morning was a talking and listening circle. And that's really kind of the place where we're examining those deep wounds and that history with state partners at the table, so that they can really feel and understand and humanize what it means to be, you know, a living member of this ongoing rich culture that has been very much sidelined in the place that it's from. We then had lunch, and I think we'd like to continue to be able to feed people throughout this process. And then in the afternoon, we had some resources available from the State Library, the Archives, and the California Museum. So a lot of that was primary resources, and had some discoveries from council members. Were able to see basically the very much at the time view of Native people generally, in the words of the people that were here as Californians. And so that was, something that continues to be available. And if folks want help in navigating that, we can put you in touch with the State Library because they have a lot of resources in Sacramento. And then on the Friday, we had the regular business meeting portion of the council. So this is kind of a loose structure. I think it could be modified to be on weekend days or one day on a weekend, whatever feels right to the community to be able to engage. And we just want to be respectful of people's time. And then also the fact that people's commitments have probably at least tripled since the pandemic, because people have been able to do so much virtually. But that also, again, these meetings really do kind of benefit from being completely present. Oh, and I would say in the context of all of this, we would fit in oral histories probably on the Wednesday before, and then probably on maybe even the Tuesday and Wednesday. So the 2 days before, because from experience from this first meeting, by Friday, everybody's a little bit emotionally exhausted. And so want to make sure that people are able to do that on the front end. So hybrid meetings and hearings will prioritize the local tribes and Native people of the region. And for each meeting, we ask tribes a number of questions. So if you have any suggested or proposed speakers to meet elders, tribal historians, trusted academics, and you can send us their contact information. We can also be a lot more hands-off. If you already have something that you'd like to present and you'd like to just plan an event, we can also plug into whatever you'd like to do. I don't think the state wants to be like kind of managing how this story is told, and we can help do that. But if you have something that you want to frame from your tribe's perspective, we're also happy to just elevate and stream and make sure that's part of the public record. Is your tribe interested in providing an opening blessing or thoughts on either day of the meeting? Would your tribe or representative like to have the opportunity to tell the story of your tribe at a location outside of the meeting site? So for example, if we're in Riverside and you'd like to have, your tribe's story told in your ancestral homelands in a place of significance, or a place where something really awful happened, that's an opportunity as well for us to kind of build out that agenda. How many individuals will attend from your tribe? Is there anything about your tribe that you'd like highlighted for the general public? And in the hybrid context, we are prioritizing individuals who are local to the area and specifically tribal members indigenous to the area, just so that we're still limiting capacity, but making sure the people who need to be there are there. Would anyone like to host affiliate events? Those can include nature walks, dinners, cultural center, open houses, kind of anything. And then we also like to highlight any businesses or web presence of the tribe, so that tribes are also getting the benefit of being able to highlight the things that they're doing currently. And would your tribe like to provide any digital content? So we can also play these throughout the meeting of the council as well, if you have anything that you've already prepared. In addition to quarterly meetings, the council will hold regional hearings, and these are basically like smaller bite-sized showcases of a tribe's history, of a person, of an event. And so if there's something that you would like to be able to highlight within the context of this work, you can let us know that and we can come help facilitate that. So I'm going to talk a bit about the California Truth and Healing Fund that was just announced. And this is an affiliate fund of the California Truth and Healing Council that lives outside of the state, so it has a bit more flexibility. And it is administered by the Decolonizing Wealth Project, who we've talked about before, but all decisions, all directions are made by an advisory council of California Native leaders and technical experts. So this is the advisory panel, and it includes Chairman Macaro from Pechanga and the Truth and Healing Council, Vice Chairman Myers from UROC and the Truth and Healing Council, Professor Kessler Mata from USF and the Truth and Healing Council, Erica Costa, who is an attorney and is Pomo and Wailaki, and Chad Lowry, who is maybe here today, but is definitely here a lot of days, who is an educator, is Yurok Maidu and Achuami cultures, and also has stood up a similar fund in the past, so has been very helpful in the advisory piece. I'm going to stop sharing and then share the website because it has a lot more information than.
Oh, I put it in chat.
Oh, great. Well, I'm going to kind of go through it for folks. And so the link is in your chat, but we'll go through it right now. And Michael, I will depend on you to see if that is big enough.
Yeah, looks pretty good. Maybe you could zoom in a tiny bit, but.
Okay, I will try to do that. Better?
Yeah, I say that's pretty good. Yeah, that looks good.
Good. Okay. So on the website, again, there's a little bit about Decolonizing Wealth Project, the Truth and Healing Council, and then some of the supports already that are in the fund. Funding decisions, again, are guided by the advisory board that I just mentioned, and the rubric and everything is done by that advisory board as well. Current eligibility, this is for tax purposes, not for any sort of high level distinction, but California Native American tribes are eligible. So non-federally recognized tribes are eligible to apply through a 501c3 or be fiscally sponsored by a 501c3. And we say it's phrased this way because we know that not all non-fed tribes have 501c3s or want to have 501c3s. So in the event that a non-federally recognized tribe would like to apply but does not have that structure, we encourage you to partner with a nonprofit to do so. And then we also encourage nonprofits and native serving organizations to be applying to this fund as well. So again, California Native-led 501c3 nonprofit organizations, coalitions, or projects fiscally sponsored by a 501c3 based in California. As defined, the organization's board of directors and executive leadership must be majority California Native-led and must primarily service California natives. So to the extent that there are individuals who would like to access bigger funds, and there is a Native-led organization that would like to create a pass-through community fund, that would be perfectly acceptable if they would like to have individuals be able to access those funds. Individuals are not eligible to apply directly to the fund, but again, if there is a Native-led nonprofit or a tribe that would like to create kind of a pass-through, that is not outside of the realm of possibility. Funding can't be used for lobbying, so it has to be for charitable purposes. Again, this is tax and legal issues. Funding cannot be used for efforts in opposition to other tribes or tribal entities. Grant amounts will range from $5,000 to $50,000. And that's to ensure that the funding goes out as much as possible, given what it's seated at $500,000. Funding priorities of the California Truth and Healing Fund will shift over time as the work progresses. So current funding priorities should include activities that directly support the goals of engagement with the truth and healing process. But it will logically shift as those recommendations for restorative justice, for example, are then also catalyzed. So efforts to spread awareness and increase community engagement of California Native Americans in the truth and healing process of the council. The fund will prioritize statewide and regional organizations and coalitions that can provide awareness, community engagement, and logistical or capacity support to engage with the council. Logistical or capacity support to attend and engage in council meetings and hearings. Again, as I mentioned, this work is really the in-person energy and the dynamics that happen in person for this kind of work are really critical. And so that's another piece of this is funding transportation, lodging, childcare, meeting space, and other supports that address potential barriers to California Native participation in the statewide process. Efforts to bring together California Native Americans intra or intertribally to discuss, plan, or otherwise prepare for engaging in the council process, or to engage in an independent truth and healing work with and among tribes. So if there are regional consortia that would like to say, hey, we want to take a look at what tribes in our region collectively experienced, because a lot of us are interrelated, or if there's a tribe that says, hey, we want to do this on our own, and we want to build out what our record is for the benefit of our identity, our tribal members, our people, that's perfectly acceptable too. Tribal history, research, and narrative work that supports the goals of the council process, such as digitization of a tribal history, research, narratives, documentation of land loss, cultural items, or archival material. So that can include efforts to record firsthand accounts and first-person narratives that capture oral history, clarify and correct the historical record, address grievances, or promote truth-telling. Also, capacity building for tribes, research and planning to support California Native land back efforts. It can include resources for legal support, capacity building for land back claims, retrieving historical documentation, engaging anthropological or scientific support to support claims, capacity building for how to create tribal land trusts, capacity building regarding tribal co-management or other planning needs, and does not include resources to purchase land. But again, a lot of that capacity building is included in that 100 million set aside that was also proposed by the governor as well. So to the extent that tribes can kind of access a lot of different things to be able to get to the same goal, I think that's a good thing. Again, funding cannot be used for efforts in opposition to other tribes or tribal entities. So in the land back context, you know, where there are clear claims and you've got a checkerboard situation, that will probably be a lot more likely to be funded in the context of this work than potentially land purchases in places where the land and ancestral claims are more contested. And then support for traditional healing programs or efforts connected to tribal or intra-tribal truth and healing processes. So those are the current priorities. Again, they will shift as this work continues and evolves and grows. And then also builds out proposals, but that's what the priorities are for now. The key dates, there's 2 rounds of grant making. So grant proposals can be submitted anytime before September 15th. But the first proposal deadline is June 15th, so about a month from now. So tribes that were just waiting for the opportunity and wanted to, just waiting for that to be announced, if you're ready, you could apply now. Organizations, same thing. And then those decisions will be announced in July. The second round, the final cutoff is September 15th with those decisions announced in October. How to apply. You will have to create a justfund.us account. And so you'll log in, register, and then apply through that. If you need help, there is an email at the bottom. But you will click funding opportunities and then select the California Truth and Healing Fund RFP. You can review the opportunity, determine whether you qualify, and then apply, and then you'll go through the application process. There is a how to apply video for this platform, so I encourage you to watch that as well. And then there will also be 2 support webinars to just go through that overview again, similar to what I just did, but with more detail and more technical help on Thursday, May 26th at 1 p.m. Pacific and Wednesday, June 1st at 3 p.m. Pacific. And you can register on this site as well. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to Decolonizing Wealth at info@decolonizingwealth.com with the subject line CA Truth and Healing Fund. And then with the platform, again, there's the Just Fund email. And they will have kind of the most up-to-date information rubric thought process. So please do not be shy about contacting Decolonizing Wealth if you have questions about that fund. Okay, so I'll pause there. Are there any questions on the fund? Okay, I'm going to keep moving and then we'll pause again to revisit questions. I wanted to touch on, this month has been pretty incredible and exciting in terms of different announcements from different organizations that are kind of all aligned in that same direction of truth, healing, and accounting for a pretty awful history in the United States, but just kind of generally. And I wanted to touch on the Native American Opportunity Plan, and I can put that link in the chat unless, Michael, if you have already put it, that is fine too. Oh, perfect. These are the two links that we're going to be looking at. So I'm going to share my screen again, and this is again, I'm sharing the links that all of you should already have in the chat, so you can follow along on your computer as well. Okay, so the Native American Opportunity Plan was just announced earlier this month, and the UC has proposed to ensuring that in-state system-wide tuition and student service fees are fully covered for California resident students that are also enrolled in federally recognized Native American, American Indian, and Alaska Native tribes. So it's people who, you know, have who are members of those tribes. It doesn't have to be a California Native American person, and it's basically for all Native potential students of the UC system who are residents of California. So we don't have to go through all of the details, but if you are a member of a tribe that's not federally recognized, we'll talk about the Grayton Scholarship as well. But again, for folks to be eligible in the Native American Opportunity Plan, students must meet all of the following criteria. They must be a current or newly admitted University of California undergraduate, graduate, or professional school student, must be a California resident, must be an enrolled member in a federally recognized Native American, American Indian, or Alaska Native tribe, and must be enrolled in a qualifying UC degree program. The UC will reach out directly to new and continuing students who might be eligible with instructions, and documentation of tribal enrollment may include any of the following: a certificate of tribal enrollment on tribal letterhead, enrollment and membership card that contains the tribal seal or official signature of a tribal leader, CDIB, if the CDIB includes tribal enrollment information, or a tribal identification card with an enrollment number. You can also submit tribal contact information if it's not evident in the submitted documentation. So there's a lot of FAQs here, but it is starting this upcoming year. So very exciting for folks that are eligible in that space. And then I'm going to stop share for just a second and then share the Grayton announcement. Which is a fund for California Native Americans from non-federally recognized tribes. So Grayton very generously created a scholarship fund that'll continue, that will cover tuition and mandatory fees for non-federally recognized California Native American students. And more details on accessing that scholarship opportunity will be provided as soon as they're available, but just so that folks are aware that is also a separate option as well. And I think this kind of structure is not surprising, given that there's a lot of like legal and constitutional pieces that that make this kind of a stronger, more defensible structure. But as this council moves forward on remedial recommendations, would be interesting to see how this works and how it doesn't work, and where are there gaps that should be addressed as well. So I'm going to stop sharing that one. And again, the Native American Opportunity Plan, it's basically for all like mandatory fees. And so outside of that, if you are a student that also has financial difficulties, you can get additional funds for books, for example, or other things. Tribes that had been fully funding education in those systems as well can also think about how they might redirect their funding to provide more supportive services, but that's up to each tribe and what they would like to do. Three other quick announcements before we get back to kind of the meat of this work. I did want to touch on the fact that and I'll go ahead and share this one too. Design firm for the California Indian Heritage Center has been selected. And it is Fentress Architects. That design firm was selected after a very intensive review process with the California Indian Heritage Center Task Force, which is made up of community and tribal leaders from throughout the state. And so Fentress was selected. They worked on several projects that are in Indian country generally, including the new Oklahoma Heritage Center that was opened a few months ago. And then they also are bringing Dennis Hendricks to help facilitate some of the tribal pieces. But generally, in the next few months, the CTHC Task Force, California State Parks, and Fentress will be kicking off a big public engagement process, including extensive tribal outreach to inform the development and kind of the ongoing process of that center. So members of the public and tribal communities who'd like to be notified, you can email the California Indian.heritagecenter@parks.ca.gov, and we'll continue to keep you in the loop and make sure you're a part of that process. So I'm going to stop share one more time, and then before I talk about the budget items, I just wanted to share one thing because it's something that I don't think people are totally comfortable bringing up on their own, but is kind of a big piece of healing Native leadership, having more Native engagement and more leadership in tribal governance, state governance, all of it. And so I just wanted to touch on it. So I'm going to share my screen right now. And this is the clemency process for having pardons if you have been convicted of a crime in California. So Michael, if you could share that link, it's gov.ca.gov/pardons. And there's kind of, it's easier than it looks. And really you basically apply for clemency to the governor directly. He has an office that specifically will review your case confidentially and kind of go through everything that is at play there. And really, it could be something where in your youth, you were young. And so, you did something that you might later regret because now it's a barrier to your being able to run for office or to get confirmation from the Senate for certain appointments, or it's just something that, is it preventing you from also kind of, especially in Indian country with gaming, there's a lot of things that you need to be okay with in order for folks to enter into business contracts with you. And so anyway, just wanted to make this resource available to folks to the extent that they didn't know about it. We do like to prioritize Indian country pardons just because of the context and also and just kind of make sure that people aren't married to a life that they didn't choose for themselves or that happened at a time in their lives when that they've like legitimately turned the corner on. We have had a few where it's someone wants to be an ICWA guardian or an ICWA adoptive parent and wanted to make sure that that could happen, understanding that we don't have a lot of ICWA families in California, or we have more need than we have families that are able to take kids And then in other cases, it's folks that, they want to run for tribal council. They have, they're prevented from doing so. And they just want to kind of have a clean start. So anyway, here's the website. We can, if you want to do something confidentially and have a bigger discussion, we can have a call or a Zoom outside the context of this. But really, for a new application, you would submit a pardon application, which is 2 pages, and a notice of intent to apply for clemency, which is 1 page. And we can help you with this whole process, because I know that, anything new is confusing. So just want to put that out there. It doesn't, it's not a clean slate for everything. So in some cases, like the governor cannot reinstate your ability to bear arms, for example, if certain crimes were committed in the past, but it does create kind of a smoother path if you wanted to do something in a leadership role where your background might be more scrutinized. So I'm going to just leave that there, and then I'm going to talk very quickly about the budget items. And so high level May revision budget items include, let me go back to my presentation so I don't forget. Okay. So the governor's May revised budget is basically, once we get to a little bit the springtime, basically, the governor takes a look at, well, let me back up. In January, the governor creates a budget that's based on projected revenues from tax income from the previous year. Once we get into the space where those tax revenues are coming in more and we have a better idea of what the budget is going to be based on actual numbers, the governor revises his budget and then creates an add-on basically proposal that is called the May revise. In that budget, there's typically not a lot of new stuff, but some stuff gets added on, some stuff gets changed from one time to ongoing, which means the difference between, 1 year or 5 years, it will get funding, but it's not guaranteed in perpetuity. There's like usually minor adjustments because the projections are not typically that far off. This year, as probably everyone sees in the news, always we have a major surplus, and so the projections were more conservative than the state was anticipating being able to have at its available for new stuff. So this May revision is actually pretty extensive and a lot of big items. Again, the Department of Finance likes to, when it has opportunities like this, do things that are not going to be ongoing commitments, just so that there's not an expectation that this is something that we do always, but as a state, but that while we have an opportunity to do something big, that we can do it at the time that we can. So the line items I wanted to just point to are, there's 12 million, so 4 million annually over the next 3 years. For grant making for missing and murdered Indigenous women and peoples tribal capacity building. So on tribal lands where there are projects and needs to build out your own tribal missing and murdered Indigenous women and peoples response. That is included as a proposal in the budget. Up to, I think, each tribe could have up to, I think, 1.5 maybe, but I would have to double check that because the details will get worked out later if it's approved. But it would be a competitive grant program for tribes that are saying, we already know what we need on reservation and we know how we want to deploy, and this is what we need it for. And so we want to build out our, our law enforcement. We want to build out the things that we have to be able to help our own people. And that's what it would be for, as a nice kind of complement to the previous budget item that had 5 million in there for the Attorney General's office to provide technical assistance to tribes as well. Another piece of it is a $15 million proposal to help build the San Francisco Village that Friendship House has proposed building, which is kind of a holistic wellness center in the middle of San Francisco. And then 15 million for a North Coast intertribal counterpart as well. That would be more of like a rural a piece that would be able to have the women's lodge and similar things, but in a rural context and more accessible and closer to home. There's also, again, the proposal that was already announced within the context of this meeting of the 100 million set aside for a lot of things related to land. So not just land purchase, but also capacity building to be able to do conservancies, kind of anything that tribes want to do with 30 by 30 conservation and the like. Just one more note on that is the May revision itself and the governor's budget are all kind of the openers, and then a back and forth between the legislature and the administration about what actually ends the budget. So if there's anything that didn't get in the budget that people wanted in the budget, you can go to the legislature, ask them about it, tell them that you didn't see enough in one place or another, and you can express that, you know, there's something else that should have been in there. Conversely, if there are things that have been proposed that you really like, then it's a good thing to let the legislature know so that they don't, if they perceive that there's not enough support for something, they may try to redirect it to something else. So just kind of giving folks some context about how the May revision works. And then hopefully, if everybody agrees, then a final budget is agreed upon before July, because July 1 is the start of the fiscal year. And if everything kind of gets done by then implementation starts then. So I'll pause. There's a lot of chat and there's a hand raised. So I will, Madonna, would you like to?
Hi, thank you. So I don't know if this was in the budget, but is there any like Section 8 housing vouchers set aside for homeless Native Americans? Is that ever been, have you ever heard about that in any of your meetings? And then my second question is, I'm in the early stages here in Santa Rosa, California of I'm going to be meeting with our vice mayor and our, I think she is the director for community engagement. What I want to do here in Santa Rosa is have a MMIW event for next year, because it's already happened, you know, it's already happened. Is the Truth and Healing Council monies, is that something that if the city can't help me, you know, do an awareness event, is that something the Truth and Healing Council would be able to help me with? And just thank you for taking my question.
Sure. So the Section 8 issue, I'm going to have to follow up on that because I'm not going to be able to speak to that off the top of my head, but I have written it down and I'll follow up on it. The MMIW event, I would try to get the city to fund it, because they should be doing that, because that's the whole point of Truth and Healing, is getting, you know, the community to pony up basically. But I would say that if all else fails, or if you want to do something concurrently, you know, if you have an affiliate organization or a tribe that would like to apply for that event, and it's framed in the context of the Truth and Healing efforts, so that, you know, it's kind of that history of women being treated this way, and now we're here in this space where people don't even see Native women, and so how can we even, so I think if it's framed in the right way, I think that is something that would be available. And if there were a partnership with the council, like where we had a council meeting at the same time, even better. So that's not a guarantee, but
thank you for your feedback on that. Oh, and then, so I put in the chat the first disability conference that they're having down at Sequan. So me, I am a person, a Native American with disabilities, so I will be a speaker there. And I'm looking forward to just creating safe space for Natives to, you know, not be ashamed of having disabilities, and then taking full, you know, just using the resources that are available to us that we're not using. So I hope to see some people there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think as you're doing that work, if you're finding ways where we can be more successful in making inroads in those spaces, I think we'd like to at the state think about that, because we've also been hearing even in school districts where like really wealthy school districts, the kids are able to access, special needs programs because it's a wealthy school district and they can kind of navigate the system. And in the school districts where kids may actually need more supports because of learning disabilities or other things, which tend to be more communities of color, places like that, they're not accessing it because of that shame factor. So as we kind of build out programs too, like how do we create programs that don't feel like, I don't even know how to communicate it, but I think everyone knows what I'm talking about.
What I feel is like, if we don't see people like us, we're not gonna make a connection, right? And so, I mean, there needs to be a Native American liaison everywhere, I think, in every state, government, everywhere, city. But with the regional centers, I mean, Native Americans are not using them. And I want to change that. I want the Native kids to be able to get all the services that they need. And so, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Kathy, I see you have a raised hand.
Hilly, I wanted to make the community aware and also the council of something that happened this weekend. And I have a feeling that it's happening in other places throughout California. I was alerted to the fact that there was an estate sale in Fresno in Central California in which they were selling mass artifacts and other items that had been excavated over decades. I think that this really needs to be addressed. It's my understanding that the tribal affairs from Tachi made an appearance there and confiscated some of the things. And also the Central California AIM director, Laura Wass, made a presence there. But I think that these things happening throughout California with items that were created by our ancestors and should be in the possession of tribal people, individual Native families of which these are artifacts, is an important topic. And if you don't mind, I would like to put the estate sale and the items in the chat so that everyone could see exactly what was being offered there. But I really do think this is an important issue in California, and I'm hoping that we can do something to, prevent this happening and, follow up on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I think that's a great point. And I know that the sale of at least remains is illegal. I'm trying to find where cultural items is too. And if it's not, maybe that's also something that this group helps to support. Because I think even with the other items, the people that are being put in these, sales, auctions, and the like, there's not a lot of enforcement resources. And so I think even just having the ability to put everyone's head and resources together to think about how to better manage that, both even from a public awareness campaign perspective, would be incredibly meaningful. And I'll catch up also with Executive Secretary Hitchcock after this call as well to make sure that he's thinking about it too. Okay, so those links are in the chat. And then we've got a lot of other good comments in the chat and resources. Okay. Okay, so I do also want to very quickly,
Excuse me, Christina. This is Fred Briones, Big Valley Pomo. I just had a question on the budget. I'm really shocked to see that this budget, I don't know who made it up, but the impact is so unimpactful. For example, $4 million to, promote, to find murdered Indigenous women. Thank you. But then 15 million to a center in San Francisco now. Now that really just like, what is going on there? I don't know about that. So I question who's making up these budget. Maybe it's the fund, the council. There was 5 of them there. I don't know, but I don't know how that really helps the tribes in any way. And that's that. But then also again, there's the university system. There's more money coming. And I really hope it doesn't go to the universities now, because the universities have so much of our stuff. They sit on our lands. They have all our baskets, our regalia. They have huge billion-dollar endowments. Their fortunes were made off us. So why give them more? With the impact of the students, there's only 1,000, so in the range of 1,000 Native students. Hopefully more go to these universities, but not that many. And I know my tribe specifically, we set up scholarships to empower our own people to go pay for us to go to school, like how they did for me. So we could come back and now fight for our tribe, our ways. So to give to the state, I say, no, when will the state give back to us? Instead of giving with the right, taking with the left. That's so unfair. Give us our baskets, give us our regalia. And if this fund grows, why cannot we set up an endowment just like how they did and got wealthy? Why can't this fund set up an endowment for California? There's how many hundreds of billion right now? They only give 15 million. Oh my. Yeah. Why can't they give us 15 billion to set up an endowment so all of us say have free healthcare, free cell phones, free gas, something for the tribe? So much wealth has been made off our things, and we have not received any. What we want, if you go back to listen to the March meeting, what they were saying, the one from the Europe, someone needs to be held accountable. Yes, I agree with them. And I hope you're on our side, Christina, because we want justice for the murder, for the rape, the kidnap, the theft. We want restitution. That's what we really want in the form of an endowment. How hard is that nowadays to ask? We're all educated people. So much money floating. We need big goals to come out of here, not just chasing small little grants. So please, I know you talked to that governor. Advocate for us, please. Advocate for the tribes of California, because our grandparents fought so hard. The first one, I'm going to say, to go against the US government with written permission now to execute, to massacre, was the Clear Lake Pomo. That was my people, my family, the first ones to go against the Gatling gun with written permission. And we're still here fighting for our rights, our things. So please, in this whole game of wealth creation, decolonizing wealth, bringing some out-of-stater in, please, let's work with in-staters. Leave those ones out of state, leave them. Let's have these ones here in California. Let's really promote our own people. So my recommendation for the next grant funding, please give to individuals, because some people like me try to work for my tribe, try to go for this grant. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes you have to let people go on an individual level. And then that's where your certificate comes, your recognition through the tribe, your tribal ID, So don't forget that. So please help the Indian people. Give us justice in our lifetimes. That's what the elder wants. That's what the spirits wants. And we're going to get into that too when that 100 million come in for climate change, earth, wind, fire, natural resources. Those are the spirits. That is our religion. We will talk about that later. I have to go now, but that's enough of my time. We'll see each other again, please, for the people.
Thank you, Fred. But I do want to clarify that the 15 million for the Friendship House Wellness Center and Wellness Village in San Francisco actually does serve a majority of California Native communities and also works with California tribes for in-house family-oriented wellness services for moms that may be going through substance abuse issues and don't want to be separated from their kids. And they host families of people. So they're doing really good work. And it's something that we should be supporting. And if there's more things like that, most of our populations are centered in urban areas. And so we want to make sure that we're not in this process creating more division, creating more inequity in California Indian country by not also elevating our urban youth and our urban populations who are not there necessarily by choice, or who are there by choice because there was no choice because there's nowhere to go on reservation. So we want to make sure that we're both building those resources in urban Indian communities for people to feel community, to feel that they can go harvest their own native plants and have their healing and have that be right there. And then also have satellites in and close to their ancestral lands as well. We don't want to be having kind of mismatched and misaligned prioritization of how to take care of Native people, especially when in a lot of instances, urban communities really do lack a lot of the resources that people need to feel connected to home and community. So just wanted to clarify that piece. And we're very much looking forward to the development of that village as a place for people to feel that they can get that healing in a place that is not as close to home, but can feel a little bit like home. So we are a little bit past time. I really do appreciate everyone's engagement, and I'm sorry there's so much information today. Again, this meeting is recorded, so it'll be available for folks if you want to revisit. We have all the links in the chat, and very happy that you could spend some of your afternoon with us today, and we will be back tomorrow night at 6. So thank you all. Councilmember Lucas, would you like to say anything in closing? You don't have to, though.
Yeah, I would. There's an awful lot of information, and it seems like we're getting something done. But I did want to talk about the UC funding federally recognized Indian. For me, again, I don't share everybody's intellect, but it's another push with a wedge. And I think, you know, if it takes a tribe from the northern part of the state to establish a scholarship fund for non-federally recognized Indians, that should tell us something. But if that's true, I'd like to see the same type of celebration come from our community that will step up to the plate and help support the non-federally recognized Indians who desire a higher education. I just really am not happy with California University pushing that wedge of federally recognized people who already have been sent to school. I know a number of them that have been sent to school through funding of their tribe or some other resource within the tribe. It really is long overdue that the non-federally recognized Indians get that same benefit. So that's really at the core of my take today. So thank you for all the information. Hope we continue to grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you all again for your time, and we will see some of you tomorrow night. Take care.